What?
When we get outside.
Oh, yeah. Did you see what he was saying that he like holds it up to his chest?
Holds it up to his chest.
Like holds it on the skin, and then like the harder he presses or the less he presses, that's how it changes the tone.
Oh, really?
I think so.
What's it called, you know?
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
The banking system or investments, and the homes are built all the way around to protect their bank. The name of Thomas's home is Kwa Beki Tunga. It can be broken up into 3 words. Kwa means the place of, like KwaZulu, the place of the Zulu. Beki means upside down. Tunga is a wooden milking pail that they carved in at their capital. Actually takes the name from that church right on top of the hill there. Funny dome shape, but to Chief Thomas and his family, it looks like an upside down milking pail, so that's what Kwa Beki Tunga means. The place facing the upside down milking pail. You'll find as you travel through KwaZulu Natal, you see a lot of these names like Kwamashi, Kwanadini. It's always starts with Kwa, the place of. The most important hat to Chief Thomas and his family is his ancestral spiritual hat. That's a hat there with a cattle horn attached to it. The majority of rural Zulu people are not Christian. They honour their ancestors. There's nothing in there, but in the case of a death, they kill a cattle beef, attach the horns to the hut, wrap the body in the new skin, the body placed in there for about 3 days, allowing people in the area to come pay their respects before they take the body to bury it. There's a feast, a ceremony of any sort. Beer and food is always placed at the back of the ancestral spiritual hut as an offering to their ancestors. Now, it's usually when you come to a Zulu home like this that we would call in there to pay our respects to Thomas's ancestors. There are too many of us to prepare, so Chief Thomas has prepared a place under the trees where he'd like to explain his culture to you. So say this is not a tourist place, this is Thomas's home. He does appreciate you'd like to see how he lives. So later on when you serve the wine, please feel free to wander around. He's left his doors open for you to go and have a peek inside. And I'm sorry ladies, I'm going to ask you to stick to Zulu tradition while we're in Chief Thomas's home. We have an agreement with Thomas, and in his home we observe his traditions. My home we observe mine. Zulu culture, man is king, women always have to come behind. So what'll happen is a family will go through, a gentleman would like to follow, the ladies could just wait till the gentlemen have gone through, and if anyone needs toilets I can quickly show you where they are. Please don't worry about this ladies, this changes drastically when we get to the top. That's my home, we'll go back to ladies. They were always in the Zulu.
Sinyalele mbuke, sinyalele nyamazane. Wethi mahlaba mfanzo singeli qatha.
front is called an isineni. It's a very, very important part of a man's regalia because no man may add any skin to that unless he killed the animal himself. It's made from many different types of skin. Serval cat, mongoose, monkey. Whenever they kill an animal, they cut strips of the skin, add it to the isineni, so by looking at a man's isineni, you can tell what type of a hunter he is. Chief Thomas wears leopard skin on his shoulders. He wears the koporo, the leopard headdress. Not every Zulu is allowed to wear leopard or cheetah. It is only the royal clans. So that shows his status within the royal hierarchy of the Zulu people. Two important spears to the Zulu people. This is the hunting spear or throwing spear. It's known in Zulu as isipapa because when you throw it, it makes that sound. It goes. Once King Shaka came into power, he introduced the stabbing spear and the shield. The name for this in Zulu is ichwa, with that funny sound. Again, it takes the name, if you shove this into someone and you pull it out again, it makes that sucking noise when it comes out. The Zulu language actually is an onomatopoeic language, and then many of the words come from the sounds they make. It's very, very important that it balances absolutely between shaft and blade, because many of the Zulus who are running 20, 30 kilometers into battle had to swing very easily in their hands. And it always has a bulbous end, so that if your hand was full of blood and your hand slipped, you wouldn't lose the grip on your spear. These are the two important knob sticks to the Zulu people. This is a ceremonial one. It's very precious to Thomas. This is passed down father to son, father to son. He carries this to all official functions, to weddings, to funerals, visitors such as yourselves. But that's the one the Zulus carry every day of their lives. It's cut from the root of a tree. It's used to defend themselves with. It's also used extensively for hunting. If you throw this, it travels like a boomerang. So if they see an animal, they'll throw it. Hopefully it'll stun the animal, get some time to get there with their spear. This is what is known in South Africa as the traditional weapon. The most important part of a man's regalia is his shield. In King Shaka's time, the junior regiments carried much smaller shields, about this size. Plain brown, plain black. The more senior the regiment, the bigger the shield became, the more white the shield. To this day, the Zulus are very, very strict about this. They still only carry the regimental colours of their ancestors. So if you look at this, you can see that Thomas's family were in a very senior regiment, but not the most senior. The royal regiments carried shields right up to here. They were 5 foot or 1.5 meters, almost all white. King Shaka carried a pure white shield with a tiny black dot. That's what it looks like at the back. It's not stiff. It's got straps and a handle. And this is called an umsila, or a tail stick. This was used with devastating effect against the British Army in the British Zulu Wars, because the commanders of each Zulu regiment had a different colour up here. And without any sound, any noise, they used it as a pointing stick to move their regiments into position. And if you read up about the British Zulu Wars, the Zulus went up against the British Army, who at the time had all the most sophisticated weaponry. They had guns and cannons and horses. All the Zulus had was a spear and a shield, and yet they managed to do incredible damage. The Battle of Asondawana is probably the most famous. There are many reasons for it. The Zulus are very much at home here. The big battles took place at the end of January. It's extremely hot here in Zululand. They knew where all the water points were. The British Army were wearing red uniforms. They had nice big brass buttons that shone in the sun. They blew big bugles. They banged big drums. Zulus watched them coming for miles and miles and miles. And that's what Chief Thomas also wears on his arms and legs, black and white cowtails. This is all regimental dress. Before they went into battle, they used to tease those and fluff them out. So when they came over the hill, they looked much bigger than they really were. I'd like to introduce you to the senior ladies of the home. To my left, the lady with the big black hat is the grandmother. She is 78 years old. To her left is Thomas's second wife. Thomas has 2 wives. His first wife is a very, very bad asthmatic. She stays in the Drakensberg Mountains with her family, and Chief Thomas goes up to visit her. They wear the full married woman's outfits. The skirt is called an isidwaba. It's made from goat skin. It's the goat that's killed in celebration of her marriage by her male family, her dad, her uncles, her brothers. They take the skin, they take a knife, they take all the hair off the skin, cut it into strips, sew it together to form a pleat. This is given to her on her marriage day by her father in recognition that she's leaving his protection, his household, and going on to make her own home. I'd like to pass these around. They're not dirty. They're actually very precious to us. These are almost museum pieces, because in Zulu tradition, whenever a man, a woman, or a child dies, they are always buried in their full traditional dress. So it's very unusual to have a nice old piece. And just, can I ask you just pass me? It's heavy. Just for interest to the ladies, when a Zulu lady dies, not only is she buried in all her traditional dress, but all her personal cooking pots and pans are buried with her. The reason being that most men have 2 or 3 wives. You do not leave your pots and pans for some other woman to use. You take the whole jolly lot and the whole The ladies wear a married woman's belt. It's called an isibamba, which in Zulu means to hold. It's made from grass and heavily decorated with glass beads. Now, to rural Zulu people, gold, diamonds, emeralds, all the things that we place wealth or value on, has no value to them at all. It's beadwork. The more beadwork a lady wears, the wealthier her family is. Much like the cattle reflect the status of the man, for the ladies it's their beadwork. They don't wear their belts like us this way. They wear them low on the tummy, one to show she's married, but the most important is to support or to hold her tummy during pregnancy. As the baby grows, they let the belt out little bit, little bit, little bit. Once the baby's born, it helps to pull the tummy back into shape. Oh, and you see the brass buttons on this. This actually goes back to the British-Zulu Wars. When a Zulu soldier killed a British soldier, they pinched the brass buttons off the red uniform, sewed them onto his wife's belt, and she wore it with great pride to show what a good soldier her husband is. Zulus don't see any difference between these brass buttons and our medals. Victoria Cross, Meritorious Service, these are their medals for bravery. I don't tell you that if you came from Britain. Yeah, leave that out. The most important part of a lady's regalia is her hat. Under every chief and in every region of KwaZulu-Natal, there's a different shaped hat. King Goodwill, the king of the Zulu people, his family wear a hat that goes straight up and down. Looks just like a cook's hat. Some are shaped like cattle horns. Some are very wide, some are very narrow. These ladies are married into this hat family, but they keep the hat of their own chief and clan and region. Now, you know, all our African people in this country, whether they be Xhosa, Ndebele, Sotho, all have traditional hats. But you'll find when they move into urban areas where they can't wear their traditional hats, African ladies will always cover their heads with a beret or a scarf or a doek or a hat. Because in African culture, all African cultures, you must cover your head once you're married. Now, the grandmother wears the permanent headdress. We're not going to see this for very much longer. It's only elderly women that are wearing them. The younger generation have said no thanks. Chief Thomas's wife's hat is the right shape for her area, but that hat can be put on and taken off, not the grandmother's. It's made from a coil of grass. When a girl gets to puberty, 12, 13 years old, every time they trim their hair, they take that hair and they plait it into the coil. On her marriage day, her head is shaved. They leave a little bit of hair all the way around. The hat is put on. The hair is plaited into the headdress. It never comes off again. And these are not unhygienic. The ladies brush their hats 3 or 4 times a week. Just take a big bar of soap, wash the whole hat, stand in the sun and dry it out. But because of those hats, that's what the Zulu people sleep on. That's the pillow. Which I find very interesting, and my husband's doing a lot of research on this because it's exactly the same as the Japanese use, but more interesting than that is exactly the same pattern, which is going to be very interesting. He's doing a lot of study on that. I don't know if you want to pass that. Oh, sorry. Yes, to this day, all Zulu men have these. They might not use it as a pillow, although many of them still do. They use it as a stool. They carve it to the shape of their shoulders. Well, Thomas and I have the same size shoulders. So if you see a Zulu walking along the road like this, it means he's off to a meeting, and he takes us with him to sit on, because men must always sit higher than ladies. Sorry, ladies. The ladies wear breast cover and a cloak. In the old days, that would have been made out of skin. Nowadays, it's only the newly married girls that will have their breast covers made of skin, usually long, also to support her tummy when she's pregnant. When the baby's born, it's put to the back to carry the baby in. You know, Zulu women do not understand how we Western women operate at all. It actually doesn't matter what country you come from, America, England, South Africa, Germany, wherever. They say that we are very, very confrontational, extremely argumentative, and that is not the way to deal with a man. They believe that the way to deal with your husband or your man is you say to him, yes, darling. No, darling. You're wonderful, darling. Has she been doing this, Mr. Bailey? Oh, good. You've got to train. Yeah, you said, yes, darling. Elevate him, elevate him, elevate him. Then very quietly, go and do exactly what you want to do. They believe they achieve much, much more doing it this way than us who are constantly arguing with our husbands. And I promise you, the saying that those who rock the cradle rule the world is very true in Zulu society. They just do it in this terribly sort of feminine way. Beadwork is also very, very important to Zulu people, not only because it shows wealth, but it is a way of speaking without talking. If a Zulu lady falls pregnant, she doesn't rush around telling everyone she's pregnant. There's a certain pattern with certain colors she'll quietly make, put onto a headband. Every other Zulu knows what it means. If she's recently widowed, there's another pattern. If she's having her 5th baby, another pattern. If you understand beadwork, and especially with elderly ladies, you can almost read the story of their lives. It'll tell you how much lobola, bridal price has been paid, how many children she's had, if there's been any deaths or tragedies in her home. It's all reflected in the beadwork. So it's a way of the community knowing what's going on in your life without you having to speak about it. Siyabonga. This is the eldest daughter of the home. She's not married, she's 21 years old, and she wears the unmarried girl's outfit. It's a little skirt, lots and lots of beadwork, nothing else. This is where we get huge misunderstandings between Western culture and African culture. The Zulu people are not promiscuous people. They are not trying to flaunt their bodies at you at all. A girl's lobola or bridal price is set on her virginity, her good manners, and her courteousness. To all African people, breasts have no sexual significance at all. To them, they're a functional part of a woman. They're there for feeding babies. There's nothing interesting about a woman's breasts. The most intimate or private part of an African woman, and this is not only Zulus, it's all Southern African people, the most private part of a woman is the back of her legs. Once she marries, no one but her husband must ever see above the back of the knees. And no matter where you go in Africa, if they have to work in the fields, they'll take a piece of material, wrap it around them, so when they bend, you don't see the back of the legs. So while we might be shocked with the breasts, the Zulu people are equally shocked when they see us Western married women. It's okay when you're single. Married women wearing short dresses, mini skirts, shorts. Shorts and trousers are definitely the worst. I've lived with Thomas and his family for 20 years now, and after we'd been here a couple of years, Chief Thomas asked me if we white women have an identity crisis. We're not quite sure if we're men or women. Why do we wear men's clothes? Men's clothes. Round their legs, they wear what they call mfeqis. These are cocoons of the emperor moths, which we have lots of here in Zulu. Once the moth or butterfly has flown out of the cocoon, you take a few little stones, pop it into the cocoon, sew it onto skin. It's just used for dancing. It makes a nice rattle. It's very, very important to all Zulu families to offer you fresh traditional beer. There are not a lot of day-to-day drinks in a Zulu home. They do buy tea and coffee and Coca-Colas and so on, but that's when they've got extra money. It's a special treat. It's not a day-to-day drink. The only thing you find in a Zulu home is water, milk, and traditional beer. And it doesn't matter if you come to a Zulu home at 6 o'clock in the morning or 6 o'clock in the evening, out will come the beer pot. It's considered extremely insulting not to offer visitors beer. So Chief Thomas's family have prepared beer for you. I'd like to explain how it's made. They will offer it to you. They are not at all offended if you don't want to taste it. But out of respect from this family, they must offer every visitor that comes to their home. Siyabonga. Sorghum water. Mixture is usually about 70% maize to 30% sorghum because they all grow their own maize fields. Sorghum doesn't grow here in Zululand, it's too hot, so they have to buy it and it's expensive. At a ceremony of any sort, they try and make the mixture 50% each because it's the sorghum that adds the flavor and the potency to the beer. They grind both ingredients together on the stone, put it into very big clay pots with water, boil it furiously for about 5 hours, take the fire away, put a lid on it, allow it to cool and to ferment. In the hot summer months here in Zululand, between sort of October and February, if you make Zulu beer today, you drink it tomorrow. It has no shelf life, it goes off very, very quickly, it's very low in alcohol, 1 to 1.5% alcohol level, and it's a very, very nutritious drink, especially with vitamin B. It's got a lot of vitamin B. The only
She's in the back.
Don't be offended, don't be cross, don't be upset. It is only a demonstration. It's actually the only way I'm going to show you how they do their work.
Sun Gorman? Is that what they're called?
Yeah.